The morning sun cut through Atlanta's skyline like a blade, casting long shadows across the glass towers of the financial district. Officer Sarah Collins guided her K9 unit SUV through the cordoned streets, her grip firm on the wheel, while Max sat alert in the back, his amber eyes tracking every movement outside the tinted windows. Unit 7-3 responding to Peachtree Tower, Sarah spoke into her radio, her voice steady despite the tight knot forming in her stomach. 6 years on the K9 unit had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now something felt off about this call. The crime scene was on the 23rd floor. Sarah clipped Max's tactical lead to his harness, checking the camera mounted on his vest. The Belgian Malinois stood perfectly still, his muscles coiled with professional readiness. They'd worked together since he was 18 months old, and the bond between them had saved both their lives more than once. The elevator ride up was silent, except for the mechanical hum and Max's steady breathing. Sarah studied her reflection in the polished steel doors. At 33, she'd earned her reputation through precision and dedication. Her green eyes, sharp and calculating, missed nothing. Her uniform was immaculate, the silver badge catching the overhead lights. The doors opened to controlled chaos. Uniformed officers moved with practiced efficiency, their voices low and professional. Yellow crime scene tape sectioned off the executive office at the end of the marble hallway. Captain Marcus Webb stood near the entrance, his salt and pepper hair somehow perfect despite the early hour. "Collins," he acknowledged with a curt nod. "We're wrapping up here. Victim is Gerald Morrison, 47, CEO of Morrison Financial Holdings. Looks like a robbery gone wrong. Safes open, valuables scattered, one gunshot wound to the chest. Clean and simple." Sarah's eyes swept the scene. Too clean, too simple. "You need Max to sweep the area?" Webb checked his watch, impatience flickering across his face. "We've already processed everything. I just need you to do a final check so we can release the scene. The family's lawyer is breathing down my neck, and the media's already circling. Let's wrap this up professionally and move on." "Understood, sir." Sarah unclipped Max's lead, giving him the hand signal to work. The Malinois moved forward with focused intensity, his nose working the air in systematic patterns. The office reeked of expensive leather and old money. Morrison's body had already been removed, leaving only the chalked outline on the imported rug. The mahogany desk was a disaster of scattered papers and overturned photo frames. The wall safe stood open, empty except for a few scattered documents. Detective Ray Thornton approached, his tie loosened and dark circles under his eyes. "Hell of a way to start the week," he muttered. "Guy had everything, money, power, respect, probably interrupted some junkie looking for quick cash." Sarah studied the room while Max worked. "Security footage? Conveniently malfunctioned for a 2-hour window last night. Tech guys say it was professionally done, but we're thinking the perp got lucky. Found the gun 3 blocks away in a dumpster. We'll run ballistics, but I'd bet my pension this closes within 48 hours. Max had completed his initial sweep of the obvious areas, the desk, the safe, the windows, but Sarah noticed something. The dog's behavior had shifted. His nose worked more deliberately now, his body language tense in a way only she could read. He was catching something. "Captain," Thornton called out, "CSI wants to know if they can start packing up the evidence." Webb nodded. "Yes. Collins, we need to clear this room. Just bag that evidence and let's move on." But Max had stopped near the north wall, his nose pressed against the dark wood paneling. His front paw lifted slightly, a signal Sarah recognized immediately. She moved closer, her pulse quickening. "Max found something," she announced. Webb's jaw tightened. "Officer Collins, we've been over every inch of this room. I need you to—" "With respect, sir," Max is indicating. "I need to follow his lead." Sarah ran her gloved fingers along the panel where Max focused. The wood looked seamless, expensive, perfectly fitted, but there was something. She pressed gently, feeling for irregularities. Max sat back, his tail still, his eyes locked on the wall. That was his alert position. Passive indication that he'd found what he was trained to detect. "Sarah," Thornton said quietly, "the captain wants to release the scene." She ignored him. pressing harder along the panel's edge. There, a slight give. Her fingers found a hidden latch, and with a soft click, a section of the paneling swung inward, revealing a compartment no bigger than a safe deposit box. The room fell silent. Inside the hidden space sat a leather portfolio, untouched by whoever had tossed the office. Sarah carefully extracted it, her heart hammering. Max's tail wagged once. Job well done. Webb moved closer, his expression unreadable. "What is that?" Sarah opened the portfolio on Morrison's desk, spreading out the contents: financial documents, spreadsheets, photographs of men in expensive suits shaking hands. Names she recognized: city council members, corporate executives, even a deputy commissioner. Handwritten notes in the margins, detailed transactions, dates, and amounts that made her breath catch. "This isn't a simple robbery," she said quietly. Thornton leaned over her shoulder, his face going pale. "Jesus Christ. Is that money laundering, bribery, kickbacks?" Sarah read through the documents, her training kicking in. Morrison was keeping records. Insurance, maybe, or leverage. Webb's phone rang. He stepped away, his voice low and tense. When he returned, his expression had hardened. "That stays sealed. We'll hand it to the DA's office through proper channels. Right now, we treat this scene exactly as we planned. Robbery, homicide, investigation ongoing. But Captain, this changes everything." "I said it stays sealed, Collins." Webb's tone left no room for argument. "This is way above our pay grade. We bag the evidence, file our reports, and let the brass handle the politics. That's an order." Sarah met his gaze steadily. 6 years of exemplary service, 3 commendations, and she'd never questioned a direct order. But something in Webb's urgency troubled her. "Sir, if Morrison was murdered because of what's in these documents, then it's even more important we follow protocol exactly." Webb pulled out his phone again. "I'm calling this in to the chief directly. You and Max did excellent work, but from here, this goes up the chain. Clear?" "Clear, sir." As Webb walked away, already dialing, Thornton whistled low. "You just opened Pandora's box, Sarah." "Max opened it," she corrected, reaching down to scratch behind her partner's ears. The Malinois leaned into her touch, his tail wagging slightly. "Good boy. Such a good boy." CSI began photographing the hidden compartment and its contents. Sarah watched them work, her mind racing. Morrison hadn't been killed in a random robbery. Someone had executed him, made it look amateur, and tried to walk away clean. But they hadn't known about the hidden compartment, hadn't known Morrison kept insurance. Her phone buzzed. A text from her brother, a defense attorney. "Heard you caught the Morrison case. High profile, be careful." Sarah pocketed her phone without responding. Careful was relative when you just uncovered evidence of what looked like systematic corruption involving some of Atlanta's most powerful people. "Collins," Webb returned, his expression grim. "I need you and Detective Thornton in my office at 1400 hours. We'll have representatives from Internal Affairs and the DA present. Until then, not a word about what you found to anyone. Understood?" "Yes, sir." The captain paused, studying her face. "I mean it, Sarah. This isn't some street-level dealer we're talking about. The names in those documents, you keep your head down and let the system work." After Webb left, Sarah stood alone in the office while the crime scene team finished their work. Max sat beside her, calm and professional, but she felt the tension in his body. He sensed her unease. "What did we just walk into, buddy?" she whispered. The Malinois looked up at her with those intelligent amber eyes, and for a moment, Sarah felt the weight of the choice she'd made. She could have let the captain close the scene, could have followed orders without question, but she'd trusted Max's instincts instead, and now there was no going back. Her phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from an unknown number. "Smart dogs sometimes dig up bones better left buried." Sarah's blood ran cold. She'd been on scene less than an hour, and already someone was watching. She glanced around the office, suddenly aware of how exposed she was. The windows offered a clear view to a dozen buildings. Security cameras dotted every corner. She deleted the text and pocketed her phone, keeping her expression neutral, but her hand dropped to Max's head, fingers curling into his fur. The dog pressed against her leg, solid and reassuring. "Time to go, Max," she said quietly, clipping his lead back on. As they walked through the hallway toward the elevator, Sarah felt eyes on her back. The other officers, the detectives, the crime scene techs, everyone knew she'd found something significant. The whispers had already started. In the elevator, alone except for Max, Sarah allowed herself a moment of uncertainty. She'd built her career on following protocol, trusting the system, doing everything by the book. But that text message changed things. Someone wanted her to know she'd been noticed. Someone wanted her scared. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, and Sarah squared her shoulders. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. She had a partner depending on her, evidence that needed protecting, and a murder that wouldn't solve itself. She loaded Max into the SUV, checking the rear camera feed out of habit. Nothing suspicious. Just another morning in Atlanta, the city moving around her with oblivious energy. "You did good today, Max," she said, meeting his eyes in the rearview mirror. "Really good. But I think we just made some very dangerous people very nervous." Max's tail wagged once, twice. To him it was simple. He'd done his job, found what he was trained to find, earned his handler's praise. He didn't understand corruption or politics or the complicated ways humans made simple things dangerous. Sarah envied him that simplicity. Her radio crackled to life. "Unit 7-3, we have a suspicious package at Hartsfield-Jackson Terminal B, requesting K9 sweep." Sarah reached for the radio, but her hand hesitated. Normal protocol would be to respond immediately, but nothing about today felt normal. Still, duty was duty. "Unit 7-3 responding, ETA 20 minutes. As she pulled into traffic, Sarah caught movement in her side mirror. A dark sedan, 3 cars back, matching her speed. Could be nothing, probably was nothing. Atlanta had millions of cars. But Sarah Collins hadn't survived 6 years on the K9 unit by ignoring her instincts. And right now, every instinct she had was screaming that finding those documents had just painted a target on her back. The conference room at Atlanta PD headquarters felt smaller than usual. Sarah sat with Max at her feet, the Malinois calm but alert, his eyes tracking every person who entered. Captain Webb sat at the head of the table, flanked by Deputy Commissioner Patricia Harmon and Assistant District Attorney James Chen. Detective Thornton occupied the chair beside Sarah, his knee bouncing nervously under the table. "Let's begin," Webb said, his voice carrying the weight of a long afternoon. "Officer Collins, walk us through exactly what happened at the Morrison scene." Sarah straightened in her chair, keeping her tone professional and precise. "Max and I arrived at 0847 hours. You briefed me that the scene appeared to be a robbery homicide and requested a final K9 sweep before release. During that sweep, Max indicated on the north wall of Morrison's office." "Indicated how?" Chen interrupted, his pen poised over a legal pad. "Passive alert. He sat and focused on a specific location, which is his trained response when he detects what he's looking for." Webb leaned forward. "And what exactly is Max trained to detect?" "Primarily narcotics and explosives, but he's also trained in evidence detection, hidden compartments, concealed materials." His indication was clear and consistent with his training. Deputy Commissioner Harmon, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, studied Sarah with an intensity that made her want to squirm. "You chose to investigate that indication even after Captain Webb ordered the scene closed?" Sarah met her gaze steadily. "Max's alerts have a 97% accuracy rate. Ignoring his indication would have been a dereliction of duty. I followed proper K9 protocol that uncovered something we wish had stayed hidden," Harmon said quietly. The room fell silent. Chen cleared his throat. "What Officer Collins found changes everything about this investigation. The documents in that hidden compartment detail a corruption network that spans multiple city departments, private corporations, and potentially reaches into this building." Webb's jaw tightened. which is why this conversation stays in this room. The investigation into Morrison's murder continues as planned. Robbery, homicide, ongoing leads, no details released to press. Meanwhile, a separate task force, operating with absolute discretion, will investigate the corruption allegations. "And my role?" Sarah asked. "Your role is to forget what you saw," Harmon said bluntly. "You're an excellent officer with an outstanding service record. Don't throw that away by playing detective on something this sensitive." Sarah felt Max shift against her leg, sensing her tension. She forced herself to breathe slowly, keeping her voice level. "With respect, ma'am, someone murdered Gerald Morrison, probably because of those documents. That makes it relevant to the homicide investigation, which Detective Thornton and his team will handle," Webb interjected. "Ray, you'll pursue the robbery-homicide angle. Follow normal procedures, normal leads. If anything points back to the corruption element, you route it through me directly. No exceptions." Thornton nodded, but Sarah caught the uncertainty in his eyes. He wasn't comfortable with this either. Chen slid a document across the table to Sarah. "This is a confidentiality agreement. Everything discussed in this room, everything you saw in those documents, is now classified as part of an ongoing investigation. You speak to no one, not family, not friends, not other officers. Violation carries criminal penalties." Sarah read through the agreement, her stomach churning. She'd signed NDAs before on sensitive cases, but this felt different. This felt like they were burying something rather than investigating it. "I'd need time to review this with..." "You sign it now, or you're suspended pending an internal review of your conduct at the Morrison scene," Harmon said coldly. "Your choice, Officer Collins." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's hand tightened on the pen. She thought about her career, her reputation, the 6 years she'd poured into becoming one of the best K-9 officers in the department. She thought about Max, who'd done exactly what he was trained to do. She signed. "Smart decision," Webb said, though his tone suggested he took no pleasure in it. "Collins, take the rest of the day. Tomorrow you're back on regular rotation. This meeting never happened." Sarah stood, Max rising smoothly beside her. "Sir, if Morrison was murdered because of what he knew..." "That's not your concern anymore," Harmon cut her off. "You found evidence. You reported it. Your job is done. Let the people trained for this level of investigation handle it from here." Sarah left the conference room feeling like she'd just betrayed something fundamental. In the hallway, Thornton caught up to her, his voice low. "Sarah, wait." She stopped, Max sitting automatically at her heel. "Look, I know that was rough," Thornton said, glancing around to ensure they were alone. "But Harmon's right about one thing. This is way over our heads. The names in those documents. If even half of what Morrison documented is true, we're talking about systematic corruption going back years, which is exactly why we can't just ignore it. We're not ignoring it. We're letting the right people handle it." Thornton ran a hand through his graying hair. "You did good work today, Sarah. Max, too. But sometimes the smart play is knowing when to step back." Sarah wanted to argue, but the exhaustion in Thornton's eyes stopped her. He'd been a detective for 15 years, had seen politics and bureaucracy crush good cases before. He was trying to protect her. "Thanks, Ray," she said finally. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's a new day." Sarah walked to her SUV, Max's nails clicking on the concrete beside her. The afternoon sun beat down on the parking lot, Atlanta's humidity making the air thick and oppressive. She loaded Max into his compartment, checking his water bowl automatically. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Good dog follows orders. Smart dog stays alive." Sarah's blood ran cold. She looked around the parking lot, suddenly aware of how exposed she was. Cars, buildings, 100 places someone could watch from. She deleted the text and started the engine, her hands steady, despite the fear crawling up her spine. She drove without thinking, letting muscle memory guide her through Atlanta's traffic. Max dozed in the back, trusting her completely. That trust felt like a weight pressing on her chest. Sarah's apartment was in a quiet neighborhood near Piedmont Park, a modest two-bedroom she'd lived in since joining the force. She parked in her designated spot, scanning the area before letting Max out. Nothing seemed out of place, but the threatening texts had her seeing shadows everywhere. Inside, she deadbolted the door and drew the curtains. Max went straight to his water bowl, lapping noisily while Sarah collapsed onto her couch. The confidentiality agreement sat in her bag like a lead weight, along with copies of the crime scene photos she'd been allowed to keep. She shouldn't look at them. She'd been ordered to forget, to move on, to trust the system. But Sarah pulled out her laptop anyway, spreading the photos across her coffee table. Max finished drinking and padded over, resting his massive head on her knee. "What do you think, buddy?" she whispered, scratching behind his ears. "Did we do the right thing?" Max's tail wagged, his amber eyes fixed on her face with absolute loyalty. To him, right and wrong were simple. Sarah asked him to work, he worked. Sarah praised him, he was happy. The complications of human morality didn't touch him. Sarah studied the photos of Morrison's office, the staged robbery, the empty safe, the scattered papers. Whoever killed Morrison had been thorough in creating the scene. But they'd missed the hidden compartment, missed the insurance Morrison had stashed away. Her phone rang, making her jump. Her brother's name flashed on the screen. "Marcus," she answered, trying to sound normal. "Sarah, what the hell is going on? I'm hearing rumors that you found something major at the Morrison scene. I can't talk about an ongoing investigation." "Bullshit. This is me, Sarah. I know when you're in trouble." Sarah closed her eyes, pressing her palm against her forehead. Marcus was 3 years older, protective to a fault, and one of the best defense attorneys in Atlanta. He also had connections throughout the legal community. "Marcus, I really can't. Morrison Financial Holdings has been under federal investigation for money laundering for the past 8 months, Marcus said quietly. "Whatever you found, it's probably connected, and if it is, you need to be very, very careful about who you trust inside that department." Sarah's mouth went dry. "How do you know about the federal investigation?" "I have a client who was subpoenaed to testify. The feds have been building a case against Morrison and his associates for almost a year. His murder conveniently happens right before he was supposed to be deposed." Marcus paused. "Sarah, if what you found connects to that federal case, there are people with a lot to lose, powerful people. I signed an NDA. I literally can't discuss this with you. Then I'll do the talking. Listen to me. If anyone approaches you, anyone at all, claiming they're with the task force investigating this case, you verify their credentials through multiple channels. Don't trust anyone's word alone. Understand?" Sarah glanced at Max, who watched her with those intelligent eyes. "I understand. And Sarah, watch your back. Morrison knew things that could destroy careers, maybe even lives. People who kill to protect secrets don't stop at one body." After they hung up, Sarah sat in the darkening apartment, her mind racing. Federal investigation, money laundering, powerful people with everything to lose, and she'd stumbled into the middle of it because her partner had the best nose in the department. Her laptop chimed with an email notification, work account, subject line, Morrison case, supplemental report required. Sarah opened it, frowning. The email appeared to be from Captain Webb, requesting additional details about Max's alert and the discovery of the hidden compartment. But something felt off about the wording. Webb wrote in clipped, efficient sentences. This email was verbose, almost chatty. She checked the sender's address carefully. It looked right, email protected. But when she examined the header information, she found it had been routed through an external server. Someone was phishing her, trying to get her to provide information about the case. Sarah deleted the email and shut her laptop, her heart pounding. Whoever was behind this was moving fast, probing for weaknesses, testing her. The threatening texts, the fake email, they wanted her scared and isolated. Max whined softly, pressing against her leg. Sarah realized her breathing had gone rapid and shallow. She forced herself to calm down, focusing on the solid warmth of her partner. "It's okay, boy," she murmured. "We're okay." But they weren't okay, not really. She'd uncovered something that threatened powerful people, and those people were already making moves. The system that should protect her, her department, her chain of command, had instead warned her to stay silent and stay out of the way. Sarah stood and moved to her bedroom safe, retrieving her personal weapon, a Glock 19 she kept for off-duty carry. She checked the magazine, chambered a round, and set it on her nightstand. Max followed her, his ears perked forward with concern. She changed into running clothes, clipping Max's lead to his harness. "Come on, buddy, we need to clear our heads." Piedmont Park was busy with evening joggers and dog walkers. Sarah kept to the outer paths, her pace steady, while Max loped beside her. The physical activity helped burn off the anxiety, letting her think more clearly. If Morrison was killed because of what he knew, the murderer would have searched for his insurance policy. But they'd missed the hidden compartment, which meant they might not know it existed yet. But once word got out, and word always got out in a police department, they'd know someone had found it, and they'd know that someone was her. Sarah's phone buzzed in her pocket. She slowed to a walk, pulling it out. Another text from the unknown number. "Pretty sunset. Nice park. Enjoy it while you can." Sarah spun around, scanning the park. Dozens of people. Any of them could be watching. Her hand instinctively moved to where her service weapon would normally be, finding nothing. Max sensed her tension immediately, moving closer to her leg, his body tense and ready. "Let's go home," Sarah said quietly. They walked quickly back to her apartment, Sarah checking every shadow, every parked car, every person they passed. The threatening text had been specific. They knew where she was, knew she was in the park. They wanted her to know they could reach her any time. Back in her apartment, Sarah triple-checked the locks and closed all the curtains. She fed Max his dinner, the routine comforting in its normalcy. While he ate, she sat at her kitchen table and did something she'd never done in her career. She started making copies of everything she could remember about the Morrison case. Not the classified documents, she didn't have access to those anymore, but her observations, the timeline, the details of Max's alert. She encrypted the file and emailed it to herself at a personal account, then deleted it from her work computer. If something happened to her, there would be a record. Someone would know what she'd found. Max finished eating and came to sit beside her, resting his head on her lap. Sarah stroked his soft fur, drawing comfort from his presence. 6 years they'd worked together, 6 years of trusting each other with their lives. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Her phone rang again. This time, Captain Webb's name appeared, and when she checked, it was actually from his personal cell. "Collins," she answered cautiously. "Sarah, it's Marcus Webb. Listen to me carefully. I'm calling from my personal phone for a reason. That meeting today, some things were said that I'm not comfortable with. I want you to know that I've got your back, but you need to be smart about this. Sir, I'm not sure. I've been a cop for 28 years. I know when something smells wrong. The pressure to close this case fast, to bury what you found. That's not about proper procedure. That's about protection. Someone upstairs is nervous, and nervous people make dangerous decisions." Sarah's grip tightened on the phone. "What are you telling me?" "I'm telling you to keep your head down, follow orders, but keep your eyes open. And if you see anything at all, that makes you feel unsafe, you call me directly, day or night. Understand?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Get some rest. And Sarah, that dog of yours did exemplary work today. Whatever happens next, remember that you both did exactly what you were supposed to do." After Webb hung up, Sarah sat in the quiet apartment, Max's breathing the only sound. The captain's call should have been reassuring, but instead it confirmed her worst fears. Even Webb, 28 years on the force, was worried about what she'd uncovered. Sarah moved to her couch, Max jumping up beside her despite the no-furniture rule she usually enforced. Tonight, she needed his presence more than she needed discipline. She turned on the television to a mindless comedy, trying to distract herself from the weight of the day. But her mind kept returning to those documents, to the names she'd seen, to the web of corruption Morrison had documented so carefully. He'd kept that insurance for a reason. He'd known he was in danger, and in the end, it hadn't saved him. Sarah's hand moved to Max's head, her fingers curling into his thick fur. "Promise me something, buddy," she whispered. "Promise me we're going to be okay." Max licked her hand, his tail wagging slightly. In his world, they would always be okay as long as they were together. Sarah wished she could share his simple faith. Outside her window, Atlanta's night sounds filtered through the curtains. Traffic, sirens, the distant rumble of a passing train. The city moved on, indifferent to the corruption festering in its heart, indifferent to the danger Sarah had stumbled into. She closed her eyes, Max warm and solid beside her, and tried not to think about tomorrow. Tried not to think about the threats, the warnings, the feeling that she'd just stepped into something much darker and deeper than a simple murder investigation. But sleep was a long time coming, and when it finally did, her dreams were filled with hidden compartments, amber eyes watching from shadows, and the certain knowledge that nothing would ever be simple again. Sarah's radio crackled to life at 6:30 hours, dragging her from restless sleep. "Unit 7-3, we need K9 at a warehouse on Fulton Industrial Boulevard. Possible drug operation." She rolled out of bed, Max already on his feet and stretching. The Malinois had slept on the floor beside her, his protective instincts heightened by her tension. Sarah dressed quickly in her uniform, double-checking her service weapon out of habit that had become paranoia. "Let's go to work, boy," she said, trying to sound normal. The warehouse district sprawled across Atlanta's industrial zone, a maze of aging buildings and rusted chain-link fences. Sarah pulled up to the address, finding Detective Thornton waiting with 2 uniformed officers. The building looked abandoned, its windows dark and broken, weeds pushing through cracks in the parking lot. "Thanks for coming," Thornton said as Sarah released Max from the SUV. "Got a tip about a meth lab operating out of this location. Need Max to clear it before we enter." Sarah studied the building, her instincts prickling. "Who called in the tip?" "Anonymous. Came through the hotline this morning." Thornton pulled out his phone, showing her a text. "But I also got this from a confidential informant I've worked with before. Says Morrison Financial Holdings owns this property through a shell company." Sarah's pulse quickened. "You think this is connected?" "I think Morrison's name keeps popping up in interesting places. Officially, I'm investigating a possible drug lab. Unofficially," Thornton lowered his voice, "I'm following the money just like you would." Sarah gave Max the search command, watching him work the perimeter of the building. His nose worked methodically, processing thousands of scents humans couldn't detect. After 3 minutes, he sat at the main entrance, positive alert. "He's got something," Sarah announced. "Could be drugs, could be explosives. We need to proceed carefully." The tactical team arrived within minutes, and Sarah held Max back while they breached the entrance. She heard shouting, movement, then the all-clear signal. Inside, the warehouse was exactly what the tip promised, a sophisticated methamphetamine operation with equipment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it was the office in the back that made Sarah's blood run cold. Papers covered an old desk. Financial records, shipping manifests, lists of names and addresses. And in the center of it all, a framed photograph of Gerald Morrison shaking hands with a man Sarah recognized from the hidden documents, City Councilman Richard Vance. "Sarah," Thornton called quietly from the doorway, "you need to see this." She followed him to a locked filing cabinet the tactical team had opened. Inside were ledgers documenting drug sales, money movements, and payoffs. Morrison's company wasn't just involved in white-collar corruption. They'd been laundering drug money through legitimate real estate holdings. "This is what got him killed," Thornton said, photographing each page with his phone. He wasn't just documenting corruption, he was part of it, and when he tried to get out or make a deal, they eliminated him. Sarah's mind raced. The federal investigation Marcus mentioned, this must be what they were building their case on. "Your brother told you about the feds." Thornton looked alarmed. "Sarah, you can't—" "I didn't tell him anything. He warned me." There's a difference. Max whined at Sarah's feet, sensing the tension. She reached down to reassure him, but her attention stayed locked on those ledgers. Names, dates, amounts. Everything Morrison had documented in his hidden files was backed up here with transaction records. Thornton's phone rang. He stepped away to answer, his voice too low for Sarah to hear. When he returned, his expression was grim. That was Webb. He's sending someone to take over this scene. We're to secure it and wait for the task force. The same task force that told me to forget what I found? The same one. Thornton ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly exhausted. Sarah, I know you want to push this, but we're getting into dangerous territory. These people, Morrison, Vance, whoever else is on those lists, they have resources we don't. They have connections inside the department, which is exactly why we can't back down. I'm not asking you to back down. I'm asking you to be smart. Thornton glanced toward the warehouse entrance, where more officers were arriving. Look, I made copies of everything before Webb called, but you need to decide what you're willing to risk here. Your career, your safety. Sarah looked at Max, sitting obediently at her heel, trusting her completely. What about justice for Morrison? What about stopping whoever's behind this? Justice is complicated when half the people who should be investigating are mentioned in the evidence. A black SUV pulled into the warehouse lot, and Deputy Commissioner Harmon emerged, followed by two men in dark suits Sarah didn't recognize. Harmon's expression was cold as she approached. Detective Thornton, Officer Collins, I need you both to step outside. This scene is now under the jurisdiction of a federal task force. Federal? Sarah couldn't hide her surprise. One of the suited men stepped forward, showing FBI credentials. Special Agent David Martinez. This warehouse is part of an ongoing federal investigation into organized crime and public corruption. We'll need statements from both of you about how you located this property. Thornton explained about the anonymous tip and his CI's information. Martinez listened carefully, taking notes, but his attention kept returning to Sarah, his gaze assessing. Officer Collins, I understand you were first on scene at Gerald Morrison's murder 2 days ago, and that you discovered hidden evidence that's now classified. Yes, sir. Walk me through how your K9 located that hidden compartment. Sarah detailed Max's alert, the discovery, the contents of the portfolio. Martinez's expression remained neutral, but she caught something in his eyes. Concern, maybe, or calculation. That evidence is currently in the custody of your department? Martinez asked. It was turned over to Deputy Commissioner Harmon and ADA Chen. Sarah glanced at Harmon, whose jaw had tightened. I assumed it would be shared with federal investigators if relevant. Assumed correctly. Martinez closed his notebook. Officer Collins, I need you to understand something. What you discovered has accelerated a timeline we've been working on for months. Morrison was about to turn state's evidence when he was killed. The documents you found corroborate testimony he was prepared to give. Sarah felt Thornton tense beside her. This was bigger than they'd imagined. Morrison documented years of systematic corruption, Martinez continued. Money laundering through his financial company, payoffs to city officials, drug money being cleaned through legitimate real estate. The people implicated include city council members, corporate executives, and yes, members of your own department. Harmon's face had gone pale. Special Agent, I don't think... Deputy Commissioner, with all due respect, your role in this investigation is now under review. Martinez's tone was professional but unyielding. Officer Collins's discovery has provided us with evidence we've been trying to obtain through legitimate channels for 8 months. The fact that evidence was nearly buried suggests obstruction at a high level. Sarah's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it, focused on the confrontation unfolding before her. I want protective detail on Officer Collins and Detective Thornton, Martinez said to one of his colleagues. 24-hour surveillance, starting immediately. Anyone approaches them about this case, I want to know about it. That won't be necessary, Harmon protested. My officers are perfectly safe. Your officers are witnesses in a federal corruption case that's already resulted in 1 homicide. Forgive me if I don't trust departmental security. Martinez turned back to Sarah. Officer Collins, I need to ask you directly. Have you received any threats or unusual contact since discovering Morrison's documents? Sarah hesitated. Admitting the threats meant admitting she hadn't reported them, but lying to a federal agent was a felony. Yes, sir. Anonymous texts. 3 so far. They knew where I was, what I was doing, threatening but not specific. Harmon's expression shifted from anger to alarm. Sarah, why didn't you report this? To who? The same department that might have people on Morrison's payroll. Sarah met her superior's eyes steadily. I didn't know who to trust. Martinez pulled out his phone. I want those texts forwarded to me immediately. We'll trace the source. What else? A phishing email pretending to be from Captain Webb, requesting details about the case. I deleted it without responding. Smart. Anything else? Sarah thought about her brother's warning, about Webb's late-night call, about the feeling of being watched constantly. Just paranoia, probably. In this situation, paranoia keeps you alive. Martinez gestured to his colleague. Agent Santos will coordinate your protection. You go nowhere alone, understood? Home, work, nowhere. Your K9 partner, too. Max's ears perked up at the mention, and Sarah felt a rush of gratitude that someone was finally taking her safety seriously. The rest of the morning blurred into statements, photographs, and coordination with federal agents. By noon, Sarah found herself back at headquarters, this time in a conference room with Martinez and 2 other FBI agents. I need to know everything you remember from those documents, Martinez said, sliding a legal pad across the table. Every name, every date, every detail. Morrison's original files are evidence, but your recollection can help us prioritize our investigation. Sarah closed her eyes, visualizing the portfolio contents. City Councilman Richard Vance, State Senator Patricia Mills, Assistant Police Chief Thomas Crawford. Those were the 3 names I recognized immediately. There were others, corporate executives, developers. Morrison had documented payoffs going back at least 5 years. Specific amounts? Vance received $250,000 over 18 months. Mills got more, maybe $500,000. Crawford, Sarah's stomach churned. Crawford got payments labeled as operational security. I think he was providing protection, maybe warning them about investigations. Martinez and his colleagues exchanged significant looks. Assistant Chief Crawford has oversight of internal affairs and several investigative divisions. If he's compromised, it explains how Morrison stayed protected for so long, and why my discovery was almost buried, Sarah added quietly. Exactly. Martinez leaned forward. Officer Collins, I'm going to be direct with you. You've become a key witness in a case that threatens some very powerful people. Those threats you received, they're going to escalate. We can offer you protection, but it means following our protocols exactly. No going off on your own, no independent investigation. I understand. I'm not sure you do. Martinez's expression was grave. Morrison thought he was smart, keeping insurance. He documented everything, built a case against his partners, thinking it would protect him. Instead, they killed him and nearly got away clean. The only reason we have a case now is because your dog found what they missed. That makes you and Max loose ends they need to tie up. The weight of his words settled over Sarah like a physical burden. She'd always known police work carried risks, but this felt different. This wasn't a dangerous traffic stop or a volatile domestic call. This was calculated, organized, and ruthless. What do you need from me? She asked. For now? Stay visible, stay protected, and keep doing your regular job. We don't want anyone knowing you're cooperating with federal investigators. As far as your department knows, you found evidence, turned it over and moved on. Can you do that? Sarah thought about her training, about the oath she'd sworn, about Max's trusting eyes looking up at her. Yes, sir. Good. Agent Santos will brief you on protection protocols. We'll have plainclothes officers watching your apartment, your routes to work, everywhere you go. You see anything suspicious, anyone unusual, you call immediately. Martinez stood, extending his hand. You did excellent work finding this evidence, Officer Collins. Now let us do our job, keeping you safe while we build our case. After the FBI agents left, Sarah sat alone in the conference room with Max. The Malinois sensed her emotional exhaustion, resting his head on her lap with a soft whine. "What did we get ourselves into, buddy?" she whispered. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Federal friends won't save you. Dead dogs can't testify." Sarah's blood turned to ice. The threat was explicit now, not just her, but Max too. She forwarded the text to Martinez immediately, her hands shaking with rage rather than fear. Someone wanted her to know they were watching, tracking her every move, even her meeting with the FBI. Someone with resources and connections, someone who saw her and Max as threats to be eliminated. Captain Webb appeared in the doorway, his expression troubled. "Sarah, I heard about the warehouse raid." "You okay?" "Just doing my job, sir." Webb closed the door, lowering his voice. "The feds are taking over the entire investigation. Everything. Morrison's murder, the corruption case, all of it. I'm being shut out of my own case." "Maybe that's for the best. Maybe." Webb studied her face carefully. "Be careful, Sarah. You're playing in a game where the rules don't apply to people like us. The people Morrison was documenting, they have power, money, and no conscience. They've already killed once. So I should just roll over, let them win. I'm saying pick your battles. Morrison tried to fight them and ended up with a bullet in his chest. Don't let your sense of justice turn you into the next victim." After Webb left, Sarah sat in the quiet room, Max's steady breathing the only sound. She thought about Morrison, about his hidden insurance that failed to save him. She thought about the threats, the corruption, the dangerous game she'd stumbled into. But she also thought about her oath, about the badge she wore, about the trust Max placed in her every single day. She thought about what it meant to be a cop, not just following orders, but standing up for what was right, even when it was dangerous. Sarah stood, Max rising smoothly beside her. "Come on, partner. We've got work to do." As they walked through headquarters, Sarah felt eyes following her. Conversations stopped when she passed. Everyone knew something big was happening, even if they didn't know the details. Outside, the afternoon sun beat down on Atlanta's streets. Agent Santos waited by Sarah's SUV, introducing himself properly and explaining the protection protocols. Sarah listened carefully, memorizing procedures, while Max explored the parking lot on his lead. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was her brother. "Heard FBI took over Morrison case. You're in deep, sis. Please, be careful." Sarah replied simply, "Always am. Love you." The drive home felt different with Santos following in an unmarked car. Sarah kept checking her mirrors, hyper-aware of every vehicle, every person on the sidewalk. Max sensed her tension, his ears rotating to track sounds she couldn't hear. When they reached her apartment, Santos cleared it thoroughly before letting her enter. "I'll be in the car outside. Agent Rodriguez takes over at midnight. You need anything, any concerns at all, you call." Sarah thanked him and locked herself inside with Max. The apartment felt like a cage now, rather than a sanctuary. She fed Max, went through their evening routine, but couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. She pulled out her laptop, encrypted connection active, and started documenting everything she could remember. Not just the Morrison documents, but the warehouse raid, the FBI's involvement, every detail that might matter if something happened to her. Max settled at her feet, his presence comforting and solid. Sarah reached down to stroke his fur, drawing strength from their partnership. "Tomorrow we keep going," she told him. "We do our job, we stay alert, and we trust that justice will win out." Max's tail wagged once, twice. In his world, tomorrow would bring new challenges to face together. And somehow, despite the threats and the danger and the corruption lurking in shadows, that simple faith gave Sarah the courage to keep fighting. The call came at 2147 hours, ripping Sarah from uneasy sleep. Agent Santos's voice was tight with urgency. "Collins, we have a situation. Rodriguez hasn't checked in for his shift change. I'm coming up to your apartment. Don't open the door for anyone but me." Sarah was already moving, grabbing her service weapon and pulling on her uniform pants. Max jumped to his feet, sensing the emergency. Through her window, Sarah saw Santos's unmarked car in the parking lot, but no sign of Rodriguez's replacement vehicle. Santos knocked 3 times, the agreed signal. Sarah opened the door, finding the FBI agent with his weapon drawn, scanning the hallway. "We're moving you to a safe house. Now." "What happened to Rodriguez?" "His car was found abandoned 2 blocks from here. No sign of him, no sign of struggle." "Could be nothing, but I'm not taking chances." Santos moved into the apartment, checking the windows. "Pack essentials for you and the dog. 5 minutes." Sarah's hands moved on autopilot, stuffing clothes and Max's supplies into a duffel bag. Her mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. An FBI agent disappearing while protecting her meant whoever was behind this had serious resources and zero hesitation about escalating. "Ready," she said, clipping Max's tactical lead to his harness. Santos led them down the back stairs, avoiding the elevator. His weapon stayed drawn, his movements precise and controlled. In the parking lot, he moved Sarah toward his vehicle. Max pressed close to her leg. The shot came from nowhere, shattering Santos's windshield. The agent shoved Sarah behind a concrete pillar, returning fire toward the neighboring building's rooftop. Max barked once, sharp and aggressive, his body tense with protective instinct. "Stay down," Santos shouted, his phone already at his ear, calling for backup. More shots rang out, bullets sparking off concrete and metal. Sarah's training took over. She positioned herself to shield Max while maintaining a defensive position. Her service weapon felt inadequate against a sniper, but she kept it ready. Santos fired 3 more rounds toward the rooftop, then grabbed Sarah's arm. "Move! Now!" They sprinted to a different vehicle, Santos's backup car parked 1 row over. Max leaped into the back seat as Sarah dove into the passenger side. Santos gunned the engine, tires squealing as they rocketed out of the parking lot. "Are you hit?" Santos demanded, weaving through traffic. "No! You!" "Grazed my shoulder. I'll live." He took a hard left, running a red light. Whoever that was, they were professional. Suppressed rifle, elevated position, knew exactly where we'd be. Sarah's phone rang. Martinez's number. She answered on speaker. "Collins, what's your status?" "Under fire at my apartment. Santos is moving us to secondary location. Where's Rodriguez?" Martinez's curse was eloquent. "His vehicle's GPS went dark 45 minutes ago. Last known position was 2 blocks from your building. I've got teams responding to your location, but you need to assume you're compromised. Follow Santos's lead." The line went dead. Santos took another sharp turn, his eyes constantly checking mirrors. "There's a safe house in Decatur. Secure location, no connection to FBI or Atlanta PD. We'll hole up there until Martinez can reorganize protection." Sarah reached back to touch Max, reassuring herself he was okay. The Malinois was alert but calm, trained for high-stress situations. "They knew where I lived. They knew about the protection detail. Which means either they've been surveilling you since the beginning, or someone inside gave them information." Santos's jaw tightened. Rodriguez was former Marine, 10 years with the Bureau. If they took him out, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. They drove for 20 minutes, Santos taking random turns and doubling back to ensure they weren't followed. The safe house was a nondescript bungalow in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place that wouldn't attract attention. Inside, Santos checked his shoulder wound, a graze that had bled through his shirt but wasn't serious. Sarah helped him bandage it while Max explored the small house, his nose working every corner. "I need to call Martinez with a secure update," Santos said, moving to a landline. "Stay away from windows. I'll do a perimeter check after." While Santos made his call, Sarah sat on the worn couch, Max pressing against her legs. Her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading, the reality of what had just happened sinking in. Someone had tried to kill her, had possibly killed Agent Rodriguez, all because Max had found a hidden compartment. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Run all you want. We know where you'll end up, just like Morrison." Sarah showed Santos the text when he returned. The agent's expression darkened. "They're trying to terrorize you, make you panic. Don't give them the satisfaction. How did they find me so fast? We weren't at my apartment more than 2 hours before they made their move. Either they had surveillance in place already or—" Santos hesitated. "Or someone told them you were going home tonight." The implications hung heavy in the air. Someone inside the investigation was feeding information to the people who wanted Sarah dead. Could be Atlanta PD, could be the FBI, could be anyone. Martinez arrived 30 minutes later with 3 more agents. His face was grim as he entered the safe house, immediately checking Sarah and Max. "Rodriguez is dead. They found him in his vehicle, single gunshot to the head, professional execution." Sarah felt sick. An agent was dead because he'd been assigned to protect her. "I'm sorry." "Don't." Martinez's voice was sharp. "This isn't on you. This is on the bastards who think they can murder federal agents and witnesses to protect their corruption." Rodriguez knew the risks. We all do. He pulled out a tablet, showing Sarah surveillance footage. "This is from a traffic camera near your apartment. Watch this vehicle." He pointed to a dark sedan that appeared multiple times over the past 3 days. "They've been watching you, tracking your patterns, waiting for the right moment. How did they know about the FBI protection? That's what I need to find out." Martinez's expression was cold fury. "We have a leak. Could be clerical staff who saw paperwork. Could be someone monitoring communications. Could be an agent on the take. Until I identify the source, we operate on a need-to-know basis only." One of the other agents spoke up. "Sir, we've got movement on the Morrison accounts. 2 hours ago, someone accessed offshore accounts connected to his shell companies. They transferred $4 million before our freeze order could propagate through the banking system." Martinez turned to Sarah. "These people are liquidating assets, covering tracks. They're in cleanup mode, which makes you an even bigger target. Everything Morrison documented, every name in those files, they all have motivation to see you disappear." Sarah looked at Max, sleeping now at her feet, exhausted from the night's events. "What do you need from me?" "I need you to testify before a grand jury. We're expediting the indictments, Assistant Chief Crawford, Councilman Vance, Senator Mills, and 6 others. Your testimony about discovering Morrison's documents, combined with the documents themselves and the financial evidence we've gathered, is enough to secure indictments. But you have to survive long enough to testify." "When?" 72 hours. We're moving up the timeline because of tonight's attack. The grand jury is being sequestered, location undisclosed. You'll stay here under guard until we transport you to the courthouse under full security." Santos spoke up. "Sir, with respect, if we have a leak, transporting Collins to a courthouse puts her in a kill zone. These people have already shown they're willing to engage in broad daylight, which is why we're not using standard protocols." Martinez pulled up a map on his tablet. "We'll have 3 decoy transports, different routes, different vehicles. Collins will be in an armored van with a full tactical team. Air support from local PD, multiple checkpoints, the whole 9 yards." Sarah tried to process the scale of what Martinez was planning. This was how they protected mob witnesses, not small-town cops who stumbled into the wrong case. "You really think they'll try something that bold? They've already killed Morrison, executed Rodriguez, and tried to assassinate you. At this point, bold is their only play." Martinez met her eyes. "These people are desperate, Officer Collins, and desperate people with resources are the most dangerous kind." The next 72 hours blurred into a surreal waiting game. Sarah stayed in the safe house with rotating FBI protection, never the same agents twice to minimize leak risk. Max adapted better than she did, treating the confinement as just another strange human requirement. Sarah spent the time preparing her testimony, going over every detail of the Morrison scene with Martinez and his team. They built a timeline, documented her chain of custody for the evidence, anticipated every question a defense attorney might raise. On the second night, Martinez brought news. "We found your leak, staff analyst at the Atlanta FBI field office." She's been feeding information to Councilman Vance for the past 6 months. Case details, witness information, operational plans. She's in custody now, but the damage is done. They know we're moving you for grand jury testimony. Do they know when? We've been feeding disinformation through channels we think are compromised. As far as anyone outside this room knows, you're testifying Friday morning. Actually, you're going tomorrow at dawn. We move while they're still preparing for the wrong day. Sarah felt a cold determination settle over her. Then let's end this. The pre-dawn darkness was absolute when they woke Sarah at 0400 hours. She dressed in body armor provided by the FBI, checking Max's protective vest carefully. The Malinois sensed the importance of the day, his demeanor shifting to pure working dog mode. The convoy consisted of 3 armored vans, all identical, departing at 5-minute intervals. Sarah and Max were in the second vehicle, surrounded by 6 tactical agents armed with automatic weapons. The ride to the courthouse should take 40 minutes through Atlanta's empty pre-dawn streets. They'd been driving for 20 minutes when the radio crackled. Lead vehicle reporting suspicious vehicle, black SUV, no plates, following at 200 meters. Martinez's voice responded immediately. All units, eyes open. Proceed with evasion protocol Delta. The convoy split up, each van taking a different route. Sarah's driver accelerated, weaving through side streets. Max stood alert beside her, his training keeping him steady despite the vehicle's movement. Second suspicious vehicle, red sedan, attempting to pace us, their driver reported. Sarah's hand moved to her service weapon. They'd expected pursuit, but actually experiencing it sent her pulse racing. These people had killed to protect their secrets. They wouldn't hesitate to attack a federal convoy. The attack came at an intersection. The red sedan ran the light, trying to T-bone Sarah's van. Their driver swerved expertly, avoiding the collision by inches. At the same time, the black SUV from earlier appeared behind them, accelerating hard. "Contact! Contact!" the tactical team leader shouted. "All units, we are engaged!" Gunfire erupted. Sarah heard bullets striking the van's armored exterior, a sound like hail on metal. Max barked sharply, his instinct to protect surging against his training to stay calm. "Hold position," Sarah commanded, her hand on Max's vest. "Easy, boy, easy." Their driver executed a tactical driving maneuver, using a parked delivery truck as cover, while simultaneously radioing for backup. Atlanta PD units responded, sirens wailing in the distance. The black SUV pulled alongside, and Sarah saw the passenger window lowering. Her training screamed danger. "Gun!" she shouted. The tactical agent beside her had already seen it. He returned fire through the van's gun port, controlled bursts that shattered the SUV's window. The vehicle swerved away, hitting a parked car and coming to a stop. But the red sedan was still pursuing, now joined by a third vehicle, a white pickup truck. They were coordinated, professional, and willing to engage in a running gun battle through Atlanta's streets. 2 minutes to courthouse perimeter, their driver announced. "Federal building security is mobilizing." Those 2 minutes felt like hours. Sarah held Max close, whispering reassurances while bullets pinged off armor plating and tactical agents returned fire. She'd been in dangerous situations before, but never anything like this. The courthouse appeared ahead, its grounds surrounded by federal marshals and FBI agents. A security perimeter had been established, barriers and armed officers ready to receive the convoy. The pursuing vehicles broke off immediately, disappearing into side streets before they could be cornered. Sarah's van rocketed through the security checkpoint, finally safe inside the federal compound. Martinez was there when they opened the van doors, his expression equal parts relief and fury. "Everyone okay?" "Shaken but functional," Sarah replied, stepping out with Max. The Malinois immediately began checking the area, his training demanding he secure their position despite the obvious safety. 3 vehicles attempted interdiction, full tactical engagement, multiple shots fired, the team leader reported. Van armor held. No casualties on our side, unknown on theirs, but we left at least one vehicle disabled. Martinez nodded grimly. Atlanta PD is sweeping for the other vehicles. We'll get them. He turned to Sarah. Grand jury is ready. We're doing this now while we still have tactical advantage. Sarah followed Martinez into the courthouse, Max at her heel. Federal marshals lined every corridor, their presence reassuring after the chaos of the convoy attack. In a secure conference room, ADA Chen waited with his team. Officer Collins, thank you for your courage in coming here today, Chen said formally. The grand jury has been briefed on the significance of your testimony. They're ready when you are. Sarah took a deep breath, looking down at Max. The Malinois sat perfectly at attention, his eyes bright with intelligence and trust. They'd come this far together. They'd finish it together. I'm ready. The grand jury room was smaller than Sarah expected, filled with ordinary citizens who'd been called to serve justice. She stood at the witness stand, Max sitting calmly beside her, and raised her right hand to swear her oath. For the next 3 hours, Sarah walked them through everything. The crime scene at Morrison's office, Captain Webb's order to bag the evidence and close the scene, Max's alert on the wall, the hidden compartment, the documents inside that revealed systematic corruption spanning years and involving some of Atlanta's most powerful people. She described the threats, the intimidation, the attempts on her life. She documented the chain of evidence, the procedures she'd followed, the training that had prepared her to recognize the significance of what Max had found. When she finished, the room was silent except for the soft sound of a juror wiping away tears. The grand jury foreman stood. Officer Collins, on behalf of this jury, thank you for your service and your courage. We've heard enough to proceed with indictments. Martinez met her outside the jury room, a rare smile on his face. They voted to indict all 12 targets. Arrest warrants are being executed as we speak. Assistant Chief Crawford, Councilman Vance, Senator Mills, all of them. Sarah felt something release in her chest. Tension she'd been carrying for days, finally easing. It's over. The immediate danger. Yes, the actual prosecutions will take months, maybe years, but the conspiracy to silence you is done. We've arrested everyone involved in the attacks, traced the money, documented the whole operation. You're safe now, Sarah, you and Max. As if understanding his name, Max's tail wagged, and he looked up at Sarah with those trusting amber eyes. She knelt down, wrapping her arms around her partner, feeling the solid warmth of him and letting herself finally believe they'd survived. Good boy, she whispered into his fur. Such a good boy. You saved so many people, buddy. You're a hero. Martinez cleared his throat. Actually, about that. The FBI would like to commend both you and Max for your service to this investigation, and Atlanta PD is holding a ceremony tomorrow. Full department, media coverage, the works. They want to present you both with medals of valor. Sarah stood, wiping her eyes. After trying to bury what we found, now they want to give us medals. Politics. Martinez shrugged. But take the win. You earned it. Morrison died trying to expose these people, and you succeeded where he failed. That's worth celebrating. As they walked out of the courthouse into bright Atlanta sunshine, Sarah felt the weight of the past week finally lifting. Max trotted beside her, his tail wagging, already focused on whatever came next. Her phone buzzed. This time it was Captain Webb. Proud of you, Collins. You did the right thing even when it was hard. That's what being a cop means. Sarah smiled, pocketing her phone. Tomorrow would bring ceremonies and attention and probably more complications. But tonight, she and Max would go home, to a safe home now, with the threats eliminated and justice finally served. Come on, partner, she said to Max, scratching behind his ears. Let's go home. 3 weeks after the grand jury testimony, Sarah stood in her dress uniform on the steps of Atlanta City Hall, Max sitting perfectly at attention beside her. Media cameras captured every moment as the mayor prepared to present them with the department's highest honor, the Medal of Valor. Officer Sarah Collins and K9 Max exemplify the finest traditions of law enforcement. Mayor Henderson announced to the gathered crowd. In the face of intimidation, corruption, and mortal danger, they pursued justice without compromise. Their courage has led to the indictment of 12 individuals and the exposure of a corruption network that threatened the integrity of our entire city. The crowd applauded. Sarah felt surreal standing there in the spotlight after weeks of hiding in safe houses and looking over her shoulder. Max's tail wagged once as the mayor approached with the medals, perfectly trained even in this strange ceremony. Captain Webb stood in the front row, his expression proud. Detective Thornton beside him gave Sarah a subtle thumbs up, but Sarah's eyes found the empty spaces too, the officers who'd been arrested, the positions left vacant by betrayal. Assistant Chief Crawford's arrest had sent shockwaves through the department. 18 officers under investigation, 5 already suspended, the entire Internal Affairs Division under federal review. The corruption Morrison had documented went deeper than anyone imagined. After the ceremony, Sarah faced a gauntlet of reporters. She kept her responses professional and brief, deflecting credit to the FBI's investigation and her fellow officers. Max handled the attention with typical Malinois dignity, allowing photos but maintaining his working demeanor. Special Agent Martinez found her afterward, away from the cameras. "How are you holding up?" "Still processing, honestly. A month ago I was just doing my job. Now I'm supposedly a hero." "You are a hero. You and Max both." Martinez reached down to pet the Malinois, who graciously accepted the attention. "I wanted to give you an update. The trials start in 3 months. Vance took a plea deal this morning, full cooperation in exchange for reduced sentencing. His testimony is going to bury the others." "And Crawford?" Martinez's expression darkened. "Fighting it to the end. Claims he was just following orders from higher up. We're still investigating those allegations." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "Higher up? How high are we talking?" "That's classified for now. But Sarah, this case opened doors we didn't know existed. Morrison's documentation was just the surface. We're finding connections to state government, federal contracts, organized crime families. It's going to take years to unravel completely. But the immediate threat is gone?" "Yes. Everyone directly involved in the attempts on your life is in custody. You're safe to resume normal duty." Martinez paused. "Though I have to ask, after everything you've been through, are you sure you want to go back to patrol work?" Sarah looked at Max, who gazed up at her with complete trust. "It's what we do. It's who we are." "Then I respect that. But if you ever want to change, FBI could use someone with your instincts and integrity. Keep it in mind." That evening, Sarah returned to her apartment for the first time since the shooting. The building management had repaired the damaged concrete and installed additional security. Agent Santos had cleared it twice before allowing her entry. Inside, everything was as she'd left it in her panicked evacuation. Coffee cups still in the sink. Max's toys scattered across the floor. The ordinariness of it all made the past weeks feel even more surreal. She fed Max and settled onto her couch, finally able to relax without checking windows or listening for approaching threats. Her phone buzzed with congratulatory messages from colleagues, friends, even her mother calling from Seattle. But it was her brother Marcus's text that made her smile. "Told you to be careful. You never listen. Proud of you anyway, little sister." She was composing a reply when her doorbell rang. Max's ears perked up immediately, and Sarah felt her pulse spike before she remembered. No more threats, no more danger. She checked the peephole anyway. Detective Thornton stood outside, holding a bottle of wine and looking slightly uncomfortable. "Ray," she said, opening the door. "What's this? Thought you might want some company that isn't FBI agents or reporters." He offered the wine awkwardly. "And I owe you an apology." Sarah let him in, Max greeting Thornton with a wagging tail. "Apology for what?" "For not backing you harder when this started, for suggesting you let it go, stay safe, follow orders." Thornton sank into her couch, looking exhausted. "I've been a detective for 15 years, and I let politics and fear make me forget what the job is actually about. You reminded me." Sarah poured them both wine, settling into the chair across from him. You were trying to protect me. I understood that. Maybe. But protection isn't the same as support. Thornton took a long drink. I've been reviewing Morrison's murder investigation from the beginning. Want to know what I found? Tell me. The scene was staged by professionals, but they made one mistake. Morrison's phone records show he made a call 30 minutes before he died. Lasted 4 minutes. Want to guess who he called? Sarah's chest tightened. Crawford? Deputy Commissioner Harmon. The name hit Sarah like a physical blow. But she was at the meeting. She signed off on the investigation. She was covering her own involvement. Morrison called her in a panic, probably threatening to expose everything. She calmed him down, told him she'd help. Then she called the people who killed him. Thornton pulled out his phone, showing Sarah a document. Martinez found her financial records. She's been receiving payments from Morrison's shell companies for 8 years, $250,000, perfectly laundered. Sarah stared at the evidence, her mind reeling. She was right there in that conference room, threatening me, making me sign the NDA. She tried to bury this case because she was part of it. She didn't count on Max finding that compartment. Didn't count on you being stubborn enough to pursue it despite orders. Thornton smiled grimly. Harmon's been arrested. FBI took her this morning while you were at the ceremony. Figured you deserved to know. After Thornton left, Sarah sat in the darkness of her apartment, Max's head resting on her lap. The deputy commissioner who'd tried to intimidate her into silence had been dirty all along. How many others were there? How deep did this actually go? Her phone rang. Martinez's number. I heard about Harmon, Sarah said immediately. Good, saved me the explanation, but that's not why I'm calling. Martinez's tone shifted to something Sarah couldn't quite read. We've been analyzing Morrison's documents more carefully. There's a name that keeps appearing that we initially dismissed as irrelevant. But after Harmon's arrest, we took another look. Who? Mayor Henderson, the man who just gave you a medal this afternoon. Sarah felt the room spin. What? Morrison documented 3 payments to Henderson's campaign fund, all from shell companies connected to the drug money laundering. $200,000 total. We don't know yet if Henderson was aware of the money's origin, but given the amounts and the timing, it's suspicious. You think the mayor is involved? I think the mayor might have known more than he's admitted. We're opening an investigation. Quietly for now. But Sarah, I need you to be prepared. This might get worse before it gets better. After hanging up, Sarah sat in stunned silence. The hero ceremony that afternoon, the mayor's praise, the medals, all of it might have been from someone implicated in the very corruption she'd exposed. Max whined softly, sensing her distress. Sarah pulled him close, burying her face in his fur. What did we start, buddy? What did we actually uncover? The next morning, Sarah returned to regular duty for the first time in weeks. The K9 unit welcomed her back with genuine warmth, though she caught the whispers and sideways glances. She was famous now, for better or worse. Captain Webb pulled her aside before roll call. Collins, I want you to know that I've put in for early retirement. Effective end of the month. Sarah felt a pang of loss. Webb had been a good captain, one of the few she'd trusted. Sir, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I knew something was wrong with this department, but I didn't push hard enough to find out what. I let politics and career concerns override my duty. That's on me. Webb met her eyes steadily. You're going to make a fine detective someday, Sarah. Better than I ever was. Don't let what happened here make you cynical. The job still matters, even when the system fails. Sarah's first call was a domestic disturbance. Routine, familiar, exactly what she needed. Max performed flawlessly, his presence calming a volatile situation before it could escalate. Working felt normal again, purposeful, uncomplicated by corruption and conspiracy. But that normalcy lasted exactly 6 hours. Martinez called at 1400 hours. We need you at headquarters. Now, bring Max. Sarah found the FBI agent in a secure conference room with ADA Chen and 3 federal prosecutors she didn't recognize. The tension in the room was palpable. What's going on? Sarah asked, Max settling at her feet. Mayor Henderson has agreed to meet with federal investigators, voluntarily, through his attorney. He claims he has information about Morrison's murder that he's been afraid to share until now. Martinez pulled up a recording device. He specifically requested that you be present, said he'll only talk with the officer who broke the case. 20 minutes later, Mayor Henderson entered the conference room. He looked older than he had that morning, his campaign polish replaced by genuine fear. His attorney, a sharp-eyed woman in an expensive suit, sat beside him. "Officer Collins," Henderson said quietly, "thank you for coming. I know this is unusual, but I need you to hear this directly." "I'm listening, Mr. Mayor." Henderson took a deep breath. "Gerald Morrison came to me 6 months before he died. He told me about the corruption, about the money laundering, about the people involved. He asked for my help, for protection, for intervention, and his voice cracked. I told him I couldn't help him. That going public would destroy too many careers, damage the city's reputation. I told him to keep quiet and let it blow over." The room was silent except for the recorder's soft hum. Morrison said if I wouldn't help him, he'd document everything himself. He'd build a case so airtight that no one could ignore it. I thought he was bluffing. Henderson's hands shook. 3 months later, someone broke into my home office. Nothing was stolen, but files were moved, my computer accessed. A week after that, I received a package, photos of my family, my children's school schedules, my wife's running route. No message, just the photos. "They threatened your family," Sarah said. "They showed me they could reach anyone, any time." Then Deputy Commissioner Harmon came to me. She said there were dangerous elements in the city, that Morrison was involved with criminals, that the best thing for everyone was to let the investigation die quietly. She said if I cooperated, my family would be safe. Martinez leaned forward. "And you believed her." I was terrified. "But I want you to understand, I didn't know Harmon was part of it. I thought she was trying to protect the city." Henderson's attorney whispered something to him, but he waved her off. "When Morrison was murdered, I knew. I knew it wasn't a random robbery. But I couldn't say anything without admitting I'd been compromised, that I'd chosen my family's safety over justice." Sarah felt a complicated mix of anger and understanding. Henderson had failed Morrison, failed the city, but faced with threats to his family, what would she have done differently? "Why come forward now?" she asked. "Because you didn't fail. You and your partner uncovered the truth, despite every attempt to bury it. You risked your life because it was the right thing to do." Henderson looked at Max, who gazed back with typical canine steadiness. "I watched you receive that medal this morning, and I realized I was still living in fear while you'd already paid the price for courage. I couldn't stay silent anymore." Over the next 3 hours, Henderson detailed everything: the threats, Harmon's manipulation, meetings with people he'd thought were trying to protect him but were actually controlling him. He provided dates, locations, documentation his attorney had been secretly gathering. When they finished, Martinez shut off the recorder. "Mr. Mayor, this testimony will require you to resign and likely face charges for obstruction of justice." "I understand. My attorney has already drafted my resignation. It'll be public by tonight." Henderson stood, looking exhausted but somehow lighter. "Officer Collins, I know my apology means nothing after what you've been through, but I want you to know that what you did, what you and Max did, saved this city, not just from corruption, but from the cowardice of people like me." After Henderson left, Sarah sat with Martinez in the empty conference room, Max's steady breathing the only sound. "This case just keeps getting deeper," she said finally. "Always does when you pull the right thread. Morrison started it by documenting everything. You continued it by refusing to let it die. Henderson finished it by finding his courage too late." Martinez studied her face. "How are you really doing with all this?" Sarah thought about the question seriously. "I'm angry that Morrison died alone, trying to do the right thing. I'm angry that good people like Agent Rodriguez got killed. I'm angry that it took this much blood and fear to expose what should have been stopped years ago. But I'm also proud. Max and I did what we were trained to do. We found evidence, we protected it, we testified truthfully. We did our job, even when the system tried to stop us." Sarah reached down to stroke Max's head. "And we survived. That has to count for something." "It counts for everything," Martinez said quietly. The following weeks brought more revelations, more arrests, more evidence of how deep the corruption had run. Mayor Henderson resigned as promised, facing obstruction charges but cooperating fully with investigators. 3 more city officials were indicted based on his testimony. The department underwent massive reorganization. New leadership, new oversight procedures, federal monitors watching every move. It would take years to rebuild trust, but at least the rot had been exposed. Sarah returned fully to regular duty, grateful for the routine of patrol work and K9 calls. Max remained his steady, professional self, unaffected by fame or the chaos they'd survived. To him, every day was just another opportunity to work with his partner. 6 months after finding Morrison's hidden compartment, Sarah received a letter from Martinez. Inside was a photograph. Gerald Morrison, with his wife and 2 children, smiling at some family event. On the back, Martinez had written, "Justice delayed, but not denied. Thank you for giving his family answers. DM." Sarah pinned the photo to her locker at work, a reminder of why the job mattered. Morrison had tried to fight corruption alone and failed. But his documentation, combined with Max's trained nose and Sarah's refusal to back down, had succeeded where one person couldn't. One evening, Sarah took Max to Piedmont Park, the same place where she'd received that first threatening text. Now it felt different, open, safe, hers again. She threw a ball for Max, watching him race after it with pure joy, just a dog enjoying a simple game with his person. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Sarah's hand moved toward it warily, but when she checked, it was just a text from a new contact saving incorrectly. No more threats, no more shadows, just Atlanta on a beautiful evening, a dog retrieving his ball, and a cop who'd learned that sometimes the most important thing was trusting your instincts and your partner, no matter who told you to stop. "Come on, Max," Sarah called as the sun began setting over the city skyline. "Time to go home." The Malinois bounded to her, ball in mouth, tail wagging with contentment. Sarah knelt down, accepting his enthusiasm and the slobbery ball. "You know what, buddy? We did good. Morrison got justice, bad people went to jail, and we lived to tell about it. That's a win in my book." Max's response was to drop the ball at her feet and wait expectantly for another throw. Sarah laughed, the first truly carefree laugh she'd had in months. "You're right. No point dwelling on it. The work continues tomorrow." She threw the ball one more time, watching Max streak after it through the grass. The city moved around them, millions of people going about their lives, most never knowing how close they'd come to being ruled by corruption. But Sarah knew. And Max knew, in whatever way dogs understand such things. They'd stood up when it mattered, trusted each other when trust was all they had, and proven that sometimes the system works when good people refuse to give up. As they walked back to her SUV, Sarah's radio crackled with a new call. Suspicious package at a downtown office building, K9 unit requested. She smiled, loading Max into his compartment and checking his gear with practiced efficiency. "Unit 7-3, responding," she said into the radio. "ETA 15 minutes. Max barked once, ready for work, ready for whatever came next. Partnership in its purest form, trust, courage, and the unshakable belief that together they could handle anything. Sarah pulled into traffic, Atlanta's lights beginning to glow in the gathering dusk. Somewhere in this city, there would be other cases, other challenges, other moments where doing the right thing meant risking everything. But tonight, Sarah Collins and K9 Max had proven that some things were worth the risk. Justice, truth, the oath they'd sworn to protect and serve. And that, Sarah thought as she drove toward their next call, was exactly what being a cop meant. The captain had ordered them to just bag that evidence and move on, but Max had found something everyone else missed, and Sarah had trusted her partner enough to look. Sometimes the most important evidence was the kind nobody wanted to find, and sometimes the bravest thing was refusing to look away.